Morning all. That's a bit of an overwhelming introduction, Sue, but thank you to Norman Broadbent for making this event happen. What I'd like to do is just take a step back a little bit before we go into the applications of data. Do you know, I did a Google search for images of big data. Has anyone in the room done that? Yeah, okay. So you get things like Bigfoot, Big Daddy, and so it goes on. But the most inspiring image that you can find for big data is a picture of an elephant with a load of binary code running through it. So it is a bit of a marketing myth, and hopefully I'm going to be able to blow a few of the cobwebs off that within the next few minutes. There's a mass revolution that's taking place at the moment, and although we've just heard about the guys in the white coats, we really do need to be listening to these guys. The mass revolution is taking place in MIT and Stanford, but particularly in Cambridge University. And I'm lucky enough to spend a great deal of my time working with a man called Bill Fitzgerald. He's a professor of signal processing and applied statistics in the engineering department. He's also a fellow of Christ College, Cambridge. And it took me quite a long time to be able to say that, let alone you know, kind of really understand what it is that he does. But he spent 30 years trying to work out an algorithm that enables you to find the exact moment in data when change occurs. Now, that doesn't sound revolutionary to say it, but it actually is quite a dramatic shift in terms of what we can do with our data. As has already been said, it's been in silos. It's been organised predominantly by the finance department that said, I need to count the money, and that's how the data has been organised. And what we want to do now is understand data around the consumer. And there's a big shift that's taking place in that. But consumers aren't neat and tidy, and we can't organise them all in nice little compartments. And their data is what's referred to as unstructured as well. And how do we start to piece all of these things back together? And that's his invention. His invention is being able to tie all those disparate bits of data together and add and make meaning to it. And on the back of that, he met a young man who put he tried to understand human behaviour through data. So he did motion capture. He had images of people on treadmills and people in different scenarios. He created features of the joints of the body. And from that, he was able to start to understand human intention through data. So you put the two things together, and you now have a world whereby data in motion. I think most of us would look at data and we'll get a slice of it. Yeah, we'll get a tiny little piece of the data that gives us a moment in time. What these two guys together have created is the ability to look at data constantly while it's in motion, and then to be able to learn that state of an individual and then predict what they're going to do next. It's pretty mind-blowing. So then you say, what can you do with that in the real world? And because they're at Cambridge University and these various companies come to them and say, there are lots of corporates out there that I'm talking to, but I don't know if they really understand our challenges and problems. One of the things that they were approached with were the videotapes of the bombings of 9/11. And they dismantled the video and turned it into data. And from that, they were able to pinpoint exactly who the individuals were that had the intent to create the catastrophe, as we now know about, of 9/11. What they were able to do with that is most of us operate and behave in very similar ways when we go to airports, and I'm not my favourite place, as you already know. But because those individuals arrived with a predetermined intent, they were able to turn up at the departure lounge. They didn't look for coffee, for magazines. They knew exactly where they were going. They didn't look at the boards. They went straight to the departure lounge. They knew where they were going. So they learnt that they had anomalistic behaviour, and as a result of that, they were able to then say we could predict in future. Now, the tricky thing is commercialising this. There aren't videos of everybody, of every single person in all the departure lounges that exist in the world, so we aren't going to be able to do that. But working with the MOD, what we are able to do is, again, take these unstructured data points and be able to piece together, you know, this is kind of one of the things that we've been doing, which is to look at individuals who are connected to other individuals and then start to predict whether there is illegal intent that's occurring in that particular moment in data that we've witnessed. The other thing they've been able to do is predict how aeroplanes will fly without any pilots. I don't like the sound of that either. Another thing that they believe will happen is that the cure for cancer will come through data. And that because each of us have our own DNA makeup and because each of us have may have a tumour that will mutate in its own particular way, through the data we'll be able to start to learn what will be the appropriate treatment for that individual in order to cure the cancer. And there's a particular project that we're working on at the moment which is looking at moles, skin lesions, and through the data being able to predict see the moment of change and then start to predict whether those mutations are likely to be malignant or not. So fascinating stuff that is going to have a big impact for us in our daily lives. And then just in terms of the kind of commercial applications, because we can sit inside systems and we can see what good behaviour is and what bad behaviour is at an individual level, fraud is an obvious area. So Betfair came to Featurespace in the very early days and said, some of the cleverest fraudsters in the world are attacking betting sites, and so therefore can you find a way of stopping this? So we've been running Betfair's fraud system for them for the last 5 years, and they've just renewed for another 5 years, and there isn't anything on the market that comes close. Everything else at the moment is rules-based, and this is not. It just enables them to trade and take every single customer. And talking of customers, customers are ready. So customers out there do expect us to know them in real time. They do expect us to be able to have a history of their record, of their behaviour with us. And there definitely is a consumer demand for this. And then the final thing I just want to say is just with regard to an awful lot of companies out there, and here we are in Google's offices, and I've worked for big American companies, but there's nothing more exciting than seeing an invention that's taken place in Britain. And that an awful lot of the companies, not Google because that's not the territory that we're in, but we're fighting against great big American corporates who've got the big reputation in these areas. But there isn't anyone else out there that can do what we can do and what we've created here in Britain. So, yeah. And that's it. Thank you.